Hey guys, it's Dan here. Today I am presenting you the most powerful League starters that I have created for the upcoming 3.27 expansion. You will not find these anywhere, because these are some of the most exclusive builds of my League starter collection. The unique part about my builds is that you get the highest DPS and defenses by spending very few currency items in Path of Exile. For example, this build right here costs less than 50 Chaos Orbs to farm T17 and Uber Pinnacle content. There is literally nothing that I use in my configuration settings. This is on a 5-link setup and the items I'm using is super uber cheap that anyone can play this on a League start without referring hours and hours of crafting guides. Now, you might be wondering, how is this possible? So in case if you don't know who I am, let me give you a revelation. My name is Dan, and I am one of the biggest build makers since Path of Exile's alpha launch. I am the one who introduced most of the meta builds, such as the first ES Lightning Strike Trickster, Lightning Arrow Deadeye, Explosive Arrow Ballista, Hex Blast Mines, and Ice Trap builds, which are still used to this day. For several years, my builds have been used and self-promoted by popular Twitch streamers, who give no credit to me. Occasionally, they mention one of my accounts so that everyone can extract the path of building from it. I think it's time that I share my ideas directly to you guys, because these streamers have done a very bad job at explaining my builds. You have to understand, it's not an easy thing to make meta builds for farming T17 and Uber content with less than a Divine. I have worked really hard on shaping these builds so that you guys can realize how easy this game really is while enjoying it. So let me introduce to the most powerful lightning strike of all time. My build here is more than enough for you to farm some of the hardest content in the game. You unleash a shit ton of projectiles which return and smack the target, dealing both melee and projectile damage. This build is super cheap to set up really because my version is extremely unique from any other build out there. You just make sure to follow my guide and read everything that I have written in the notes section of my POB. Lightning Strike is really fast. I mean, you move fast while clearing everything in your way, and you also get to annihilate single target monsters with returning projectiles and melee splash damage. It's quite easy to set up once you get a basic idea about how the build works. The only downside is the fact that you can't level directly with Lightning Strike, as this requires a couple of things like a lot of projectiles, some pierce, and melee splash effect, which you get along the way after level 68. Don't worry, I'll have everything step by step in the notes section, once I have finished working on the final POB. The build is basically an energy blade build, which means you stack a ton of ES to boost your main hand damage. So you only need to use a one-handed sword, which is a good base. The unique amulet is quite important here, because Global Defenses also scales your energy shield. You can simply craft these jewels with Orb of Alterations until you hit these mods. Once you finish Act 3, your first ascendancy is one step ahead, followed by Escape Artist and Soul Drinker. It's quite good to take as many masteries as you can, since your final ascendancy point gives you 3% more damage for each of them. Remember, a more multiplier is much impactful than increased damage. So you basically stack as much ES and intelligence on this build, and that's it. You don't have to scale crit chance while you grab precise technique. You might want to grab this keystone as early as you can and then get some accuracy as well. The skills are straightforward and super easy. There is no particular position for these gems. You can place them anywhere you want as long as the links are correct. For your 6th socket on Lightning Strike, you can use a lot of gems like Lightning Pen, Multi-Strike, Damage on Full Life, Energy Leech, etc. Don't worry, it'll put up a follow-up video to explain in detail. The next build in my pocket is the Penance brand of Dissipation Inquisitor. This build can one-shot most Uber bosses within seconds. It's insanely powerful if your main goal is to complete all the content as early as possible. Here I'm using Inspired Learning Jewel, which works quite similar to a Headhunter. It's like a cheaper version, which is weaker than the Headhunter. But if you can get your hands on this, your mapping will be quite smooth, as the only downside with this build is its clearing speed. But with this jewel, you can zoom through your way easily. There are so many ways you can improve this build to get billions and billions of damage. But for a League start scenario, I'm giving you the best of what I can in case you are new to the game. This is also pretty fast as my Lightning Strike build, although it comes with quite a few caveats such as too many uniques, which can be quite troublesome for SSF players. If you look at the POB, The damage looks quite insane, but the defenses are not as good as I was hoping to achieve. Again, I've got nothing shady in my configuration setting, as you can see here. The items can be a bit debatable, considering this is also another energy blade build. So, you stack as much ES here as well. You can choose to use Ivory Tower instead, but in that case, you need to put a coruscating elixir as well. The problem with that setup is the fact that you need the Brutal Restraint Jewel for constant flask charges. So, instead, I just use a Ghost Writhe here. Call of the Brotherhood is also an optional set, just to convert some of your lightning into cold. Remember, all these items are subjected to changes, as I'm still testing for better options here. With the new Shaper Exalted Orb, you can get a much powerful shield, which has life gain on block modifiers. Inspired Learning is completely optional, in case you can afford it at League start. If you take a look at my skills section, although I am using a 4-link setup for Penance brand of Dissipation, this is directly socketed into my unique gloves, which acts like a 6-link. The Corruption is completely optional in case if you can afford it. The rest of the skills are straightforward and you can throw them anywhere you like. I don't have to explain more here, as even a toddler would be able to set this up. In order to have permanent Righteous Fire, you need to grab Sanctuary as your first ascendancy point, followed by Righteous Providence, Inevitable Judgment, and Instruments of Virtue. From your passive tree, Runebinder will be your first keystone, and then the Masteries until you get Pain Attunement once the Life Reservation is obtained. Don't worry, I'll make a follow-up video to explain things in detail for you guys. I know a lot of you insane guys love Flicker Strike, so this is just for you. Handmade and cherry-picked to deal massive amounts of single target damage, while at the same time giving you the ability to zoom through maps. Insane clear speed, insane damage. The only downside is its lack of defenses, especially from physical damage. Another downside is that you cannot level with Flicker Strike. I'll give you a couple of options that you can use for leveling, but Flicker Strike requires you to generate tons of frenzy charges as fast as possible. In this case, we get as much crit chance as possible, and then we use a Terminus Est after level 51. It's super fast, but it's clunky fast. Some of you guys may not like this playstyle, especially if you have certain health issues. So make sure you can handle this build before you jump into the League start. As you can see here again, I've got nothing going on in my configuration setting. You get millions and millions of damage with the downside of defenses. Under the cheapest options available, I've tried my best here. The whole point is to kill before they kill. Terminus Est is by far the best option here. However, there are other setups which are better options, like using a Feral's Fur, but that's going to cost you several divines at a League start. So my primary advice to you guys is proceed with the cheapest option available until you can afford an upgrade. The Abyssus comes with a downside of taking more physical damage, but the damage you get is pretty insane for a budget helmet. Pretty straightforward body armor. The important thing we have in our gloves is the +1 frenzy charges, which you can get from a gloves, which has a Warlord influence. It is absolutely great if you can get the strike skills mod here. If not, you just take the mastery for it. Dark Ray Vectors, again, the same thing, which is +1 frenzy charges. Carnage Heart is by far the best choice for a budget amulet. Every strike skill goes well with it. The rest of the items are straightforward to just cap your resistance, or to add extra damage. You can get some more crit multi on your rare jewels, while the unique jewels are completely optional at the early stages of the game. Now, I am using a 6-link setup for Flicker Strike, just to show you the important ones, as our options are quite few here. I'm also using a cast when damage taken setup here, along with Automated Assassin's Mark on hit. Everything else is just simple as that. For your first ascendancy, you need to grab Impact, which is important for our leveling setup. And then you go for Masterful Form, followed by Bane of Legends and Headsman. It is also important to grab Unwavering Stance as early as possible. And then the Masteries are quite important as well. Don't worry, I'll mention everything you need in the notes section. The cluster jewels are the best options here. You can simply roll Orb of Alterations on any of these, and then regale it for the 3rd mod. I'll have everything set up for you guys before League start, so no worries. The next build I'm going to show you is quite insane. It is super tanky, it has got millions and millions of damage, but the only problem is its lack of clear speed. It's so powerful that there is a very popular Delve streamer that uses my build. In case if you don't know who that is, well, it's my best friend Steve. For a League starter version, I've prepared something for him and you guys as well. This build gives you enough power to carry you to Ubers and T17 until you can switch to the endgame version, which I will share in a later video. The League starter version here only has around 1 billion DPS. However, my fully finished product deals billions and billions of damage. So for those of you Juggernaut lovers out there, this will be a banger of a build. Absolutely cheap that some folks out there are probably going to make one divine versions out of this build. Here you have to stack a ton of strength along with some accuracy as well. This means you also get a ton of extra damage and a ton of flat life for your character. It's just insane once you reach level 90+. Again, nothing special in my configuration setup. Oro's Sacrifice is quite cheap, despite there are a lot of players out there using this for a bait flicker strike build. Alpha's Hool gives you more space for your auras, and it also buffs them as well, provided you sock it here. You can use any body armor, you just look for mods like these. Same thing with the glove and boots as well. Once again, using my favorite amulet here, which is pretty OP in my opinion. Pretty straightforward rings with resistances. Perseverance is one of the best options for the belt at a League start. Currently, I am using a 6 link for Molten Strike. In case if you're on a 5 link, you just don't need fire penetration. Returning projectiles with GMP is insanely broken for this build. I hope they don't nerf this combo. Make sure to put these auras in the sockets of your helmet to make the full use of it. Blood Rage is mostly used while mapping, but the most powerful addition is the Sniper's Mark on hit setup here. All these fire a massive ton of projectiles every time you hit the target. You can use Anger if you have enough space on your reservation. Finally, you want to put a Molten Shell on automation for quality of life. At the start, you can grab the Juggernaut's Unstoppable for your faster progression. Later, you unspec into Undeniable, then Unflinching, Unrelenting, and then Unbearable. Remember, you're scaling strength and accuracy here, so focus on as much as you can. Getting Fortification on melee hit is also important at early stages. That is all you need to start this Marauder build. I'll have an update on this in the coming days. Up next is a very special work just for you guys who want to play a complete AFK build on a League start. This is my cast when Stun Firestorm Chieftant. You unleash a massive shitstorm. Every time something tries to touch you, the build is so tanky that you can literally sit on a T17 Uber boss while watching my videos on YouTube. You have full freedom to sit wherever you like when even running a difficult map. You gotta make sure that all the hits are stunning you. The only weakness of this build being damage over time and your dependence on monsters to hit you. This means it takes more time to complete bosses that spawn no minions around them. And that is exactly why we are using the Penance Mark skill, which basically spawn minions from the target that you apply this curse. So this unique nameless ring is a huge quality of life on this build. You want a scepter with lots of fire damage and damage over time. Rise of the Phoenix absolutely powerful here. While using the Vol's Vision, you should not have any corrupted items equipped. Pretty generic glove and boots to fix your resistances, along with an amulet to fix your attributes and get some damage over time. These 2 rings are quite important for this setup, so make sure you grab these as soon as you switch to the cast when stunned setup. They're quite cheap since very few people use these, and they drop like candies everywhere. This unique jewel gives you so much power while you're sitting and taking every hit. You just frost blink and the vines just fade away. It's nothing to worry about. This is completely on a 5 link setup, as you can see here. In case if you have another link, you can use something like Cremation of the Volcano here as well. Another random fire skill on a 4 link setup, along with Vitality and Righteous Fire. Shield Charge for mobility, and then another CWS setup here, with Petrified Blood because of lack of space, Frost Blink to undo the debuff from the vines, Purity of Fire, because we benefit both of our maximum cold and lightning res from it as well. And then we have our 4th CWS setup. All of these combined deal a massive ton of damage at our enemies. To make leveling much easier, we first take Tassalio, and then Velako, followed by Ramako and Hinakora, which gives you an enormous clearing speed. The masteries are quite straightforward with very little complications, other than the fact that you have to grab all the stun modifiers as soon as you switch to this setup. It is quite easy once I explain everything in detail in a dedicated video, so stay tuned. Last but not the least, I present to you my exclusive version of the Tornado Shot Deadeye, one of the most beloved classic builds of all time. With the help of inspired learning, a strong bow, and some cheap uniques, you get to destroy Path of Exile's endgame super fast. You move fast, and you clear fast. That's the best part about this build. I wouldn't count this as the fastest, but I'd say it's the fastest League starter of my collection. This stuff is even more satisfying than my Flicker Strike build. I use this build to compete with my arch nemesis content creator, who is a complete havoc. What I can say for certain is that this one will definitely beat him in a race, and I can bet you on my sweet non-binary butt cheeks that I will. I'm currently preparing a super fast leveling setup, which none has ever seen before. Highly recommend this if you enjoy bows in general, but again, if you have any sort of health issues, I would encourage you to try a slower build, because it's just too fast. The only downside here is the lack of physical damage reduction and defenses. It's typically a glass cannon, but a powerful glass cannon, I'd call it. You'll also need some shrine buffs in your Atlas setup while leveling, all of which I will mention in detail soon. The League starter version of my build only has 300 million DPS. I can easily achieve billions and billions of damage with a couple more divines of investment. Again, there's nothing special about my configuration setting. I prefer to be honest and sincere with my work, unlike most people out there. The items I'm using are pretty cheap, except for the jewels, which you can wait until it's affordable for you. You want to use a very strong elemental bow with all three stuff, some attack speed and crit chance as well. Highly recommend a rare spine bow here. It can be quite expensive to get the additional arrow mod on your quiver, but I'll show an easy way to craft this later. Then, you have this unique helmet for some extra speed, a generic body armor with fizz taken as fire, shadows and dust to give you rampage. This one is completely optional as I'm using a rare gloves instead. Then, you have a generic boot and a set of rings to fix your resistances. The amulet here, pretty strong in my opinion, especially with a free precision aura. This belt gives you a ton of extra damage with a little bit of some resistances as well. You can craft these cluster jewels with Orb of Alterations and Regals. Or you can go for one mod until you can afford the other one. Inspired Learning and Lionized Fall might be quite expensive early on, but this should be super cheap after a week. In my skills setup, I have two sets of tornado shots, one with my main 6-link and the other for my 4-link ballista. In case if you don't have a 6-link, you can remove the increased critical strikes gem. Focuses ballista, makes them fire only when you do, but it's much faster and powerful than the auto attack. Then, you have the sniper's mark on hit, some movement abilities and frenzy skill. You can also throw other skills, like explosive arrow, burning arrow, ice shot on a mana-forged support setup. That's completely up to you. Your first ascendancy is gathering winds, followed by ricochet, endless munitions, and far shot. The masteries are just a handful, but very impactful for your build. I'll have a leveling setup soon. So if you found this video to be helpful, make sure to share and subscribe with your friends, and let's have a blast of a brand new League start.